Today I'm having a nice chat with Axel Kuborn, one of the founders of Silversquare, a co-working space. He has many years of experience in making a workplace fun to work in, a place of collaboration and a booster of innovation. And with the big shift happening since the pandemic, a lot of companies are reviewing their way of working. For many tasks, they saw it was possible and even more productive to work from home. On the other hand, companies found it harder to innovate, brainstorm, and collaborate virtually. And engagement towards their company culture decreased. So many organizations are rethinking their way of working, and some are redesigning their workspace. That is why I wanted to pick Axel's brain. In this episode, we talk about how to make a workspace fun, how to increase collaboration or the community feeling, and how to boost innovation. We also talk about the future of work that is becoming more and more flexible, and the fact that working from home or from the office aren't the only options companies choose. Digitalization was already fundamentally transforming organizations, teams, and their leaders. But the pandemic accelerated this transformation and complexified things. Working from home, the lack of boundaries, the disconnection, the increased workload, the increased time spent in virtual meetings, the anxiety of going back to the office. But also more time spent with family, less traffic jams, more exercising. And so a lot of us are rearranging our priorities because we've been in touch with our mortality and fragility. Teams have been impacted heavily as well, and the hybrid model will probably be the new way of working. So leaders need to adapt to this new reality to get the best out of people and from their teams. So we are organizing a free 2-part webinar series on how COVID is impacting the people and leaders, that is part 1, and how it is impacting the teams, part 2. So if you want to participate, just go to keyleader.com/events or to the show notes of this episode. And if you think you can go back to normal, think again. Because the pandemic is accelerating the paradigm shift of our society. And you choose if you want to be part of the bright future or hold on to the crumbling past. So go to keyleader.com/events to subscribe to our webinar. Now back to our episode. Hello, Axel. How are you doing?
Hello, Murielle. I'm doing fine. And you?
Yeah, I'm great. As you see, I'm working from my terrace now in Spain. So you might hear the church bell or you might hear some tractors coming by because this is a village of with a lot of agriculture. So
that's the way we work today, right?
Yeah, exactly. But if there is too much sound, I will go downstairs. But I'll prefer to try it this way and the view is nicer.
The view is great.
Yeah. So maybe you can describe a little bit who you are?
Well, my name is Axel Kuborn. I'm Belgian, from many origins, like many of us here, but I'm born here and I've lived here most of my life. I'm 48 years old, father of 2 kids, proudly married. And I am the founder and co-CEO of a company called Silversquare, which is a leading co-working operator in Belgium and in Luxembourg. And I'm also the founder of a project which we are currently building, which is called Sparks, which is about the same business in real estate, except it's operating meeting rooms instead of offices. And I'm finally the founder of Marvelous Marvin Boxing. I think English boxing is a fantastic sport, which I've been doing for many years, and decided to open some gyms here in Belgium to spread the sports and introduce it to people that are not familiar with it.
Yeah, I should try your boxing facilities once.
Yes.
I've been boxing for 2 or 3 years, but now since the pandemic, I stopped. But I really enjoyed boxing.
It's a great sport. It has fantastic values. It's fantastic to build faith into oneself, whether you're young or less young. And what we decided to do is to do a boxing club, which is purely English boxing. It's not a fitness. It's boxing gym, but open to all. So it's a non-competitive environment, which makes it very welcoming for everybody. And we have about 40% or 45% of women. Some of them like to spar, some not. But there you go.
Nice, nice. I like the parallel between boxing also and leadership, because of course you have to punch, but when you punch or when you are about to be punched, you have to be very stable, but then in between you have to be very agile as well. So it's constantly a mix between agility and stability, which is exactly what we need in today's world.
There are many parallels between sports in general and life, and therefore work being part of life, and boxing even more. It's a sport with very deep roots, very strong values, which you can find in the leaders that we usually look up to, basically.
Yeah.
And it's about the taste of the effort. It's about resilience. It's about fighting spirit, of course. It's about ambition, self-ambition. You can put it any way you want, but there's a lot of things that you can find in boxing and in sports in general, basically.
Yeah. Nice, nice. So, but why and when did you start the co-working space?
Started in
Started
2000.
with one.
We started with 2008. In 2008, so way before co-working, the word was even coined, because it was coined in 2010 or 2011. So back in these days, it used to be called flex offices, lacking a better name. We started because we spotted an opportunity, basically working on a startup project in the textile industry, which is the industry I used to work in before. We realized that there was no offering for a startup. Now, back in these days, there were more and more startups. The digital age had already entered, of course, for about 10 years. And startups were getting more and more common. You could see them appearing more often than in the previous decade. And more and more independence, whether they be developers or whether they work in other areas. And so we realized that there was an opportunity which was unmet, which was simply taking a professional office floor, furnish it in an appropriate way, and then try to pull the people together so that it creates an energy, a specific energy, and people collaborate and interact. And so there's value added into bringing people together. Basically, the sum of the individual is greater than everybody apart.
Yeah. And so why do people or organizations, because you not only have individual people, you also have organizations, why do they choose to work from Silversquare?
Well, from co-working in general, it's based on four four main drivers. One is the change in the workforce, which is going more and more towards being independent, and more leaning towards small companies, whereas before students from large universities were aiming to work into one of the big five or a large bank, etc. Yeah. Now everybody's aiming into making his own project and entering first a startup before being an entrepreneur oneself. That's a very strong driver for our our model, operational model and economic model. The second is environment and mobility, the preoccupation that people have with the impact of their life on the environment, and so basically want to work closer to home. A co-working is a local office, basically, for people that live in the neighborhood of the co-working. That's the way we see it, at least. So those are two very powerful drivers. The third one being the digitalization. this couldn't exist, of course, if without the digital capabilities. Our current meeting is a testimony of it.
Yeah.
So basically, all this drives for the feasibility of a co-working. Now, why do people choose Silversquare specifically? I think that we do co-working with a twist. We're very singular. First of all, we started a long time ago, so we have a lot of experience into how to do a proper co-working. And we emphasize very strongly the community and the interaction between our members. We think that's the key, basically. So we're not just someone that spotted an opportunity into real estate. We think that the opportunity is not in real estate. The opportunity is operational, basically. And so we invest a lot of time and money into into animating the community through conferences, afterworks, breakfast, etc. You name it. Everything that we can throw in the middle of the table for people to come and choose what they want to participate in. That's what we do.
Yeah, that's also why I come. I work from Silversquare regularly.
Yes.
I come first for the community because I have all the facilities at
Oh.
home, but I don't have a community at home. And so I lack connections, and that's why I love to come. I have like the feeling I have more colleagues than, because we're a small team, only 3 of us. And when I'm at Silversquare, I have the feeling I have more colleagues, more inspiration, and more energy also.
It's a it's it's a feeling which is shared by most of our members. Now, you're heading your company, so it's your decision. It's also an echo that we hear from people that work for a company which is based here. So we have organizations that go from up until 80, 90 people in-house or within Silversquare. And it works as well with employees because it's a very dynamic environment. And instead of being within only the walls of your own company, where the conversation is very often the same after a while, obviously. Here, the diversity of the profiles that you see here, or the diversity of the expertise, which is naturally present into these type of ecosystems, is perpetual food, basically. So and if you're an open-minded person and you like to interact with people and learn from others, it's a great environment because you have people that work, some in communications, some graphic designers, some working in the digital development. So you'll find people in every walks of life, basically, and which you very often lack within the closed walls of one organization.
Yeah. Yeah, and although I know a lot of people found their clients also at Silversquare. Well, my clients are not at Silversquare because it's mostly leaders in large organizations, but I found collaborations also at Silversquare. So that's nice.
The co-working basically. Co-working typically provides flexibility for organizations to grow easily without being locked into a contract and a finite space for 3 to 6 years. Sometimes, most of the contracts that people sign for real estate are 6 years in the office real estate business. 6 years is a long time when you're a startup or a scale up. You never know how many people you're going to be. You're going to be 20, 50, 100, or 20. God knows. So how do you plan for that? So flexibility is of course one of the key criteria in mind when people subscribe. And then the 2 other keys are based on interaction. It's a growth in business because you start working with people around you. And also there's a growth or an improvement in your, how do you call that? Into your work processes, because you work with companies that actually become your suppliers around you. So there's a gain because you work with the accountant, which is right there, the graphic designer, which is right there, the translator, which is just right there. And so it makes it much easier. And those are very strong drivers. And the last driver, of course, is innovation. Innovation is a very strong driver because people here meet people that do other businesses, and it pops up ideas into your mind, which you would never have had should you work into a closed environment.
Yeah. And I also like the mindset because, well, before being an entrepreneur, I was a CEO in an organization. And I know in an organization, people expect a lot from their employer. just like there is no, or the coffee isn't good at the coffee machine, and they will complain, or for little things. And I remember seeing people at Silversquare where, okay, there is no tea anymore, and somebody said something about the tea, and the girl just said, yeah, well, then just take the tea yourself, or just ask someone. It was another mindset than in most organizations. It was really an entrepreneur's mindset. So I believe there is also an advantage of being there if you want to change your mindset, because the best way to change your mindset is also to be surrounded with people that have another mindset.
Absolutely, I agree with what you're saying. It's about empowerment basically, as well. And basically, I think that companies are stronger when they're in this type of environment, because it's an ecosystem that empowers people to outgrow themselves. And we try to organize that, of course. That's part of our DNA as well, and it's a DNA that we try to that we want to be completely part of the environment we build.
Yeah, we can feel it, because you implicate the people in the events, or people can organize events themselves for other members, and that's great. And that's also this empowerment mindset.
It's an open environment.
Yeah,
it's not a closed environment. Co-working, not all, but our co-working, like a lot of co-workings around the world, I think are open environments. And I think it's not something which is closed and sealed for the outside world. It's an open environment, and so that's how we grow. And I think that's the big interest of this type of environment, of ecosystem.
Yeah. And so you started with one. So how has Silversquare evolved now?
So we started with 600 square meter in the central business district of Brussels, and it quickly evolved because first of all, 600 square meters is not big, so you can fill it pretty quickly. It took us a bit less than a year before we started growing and took a additional floor, and then another one. And we grew up to being now about 35 to 40,000 square meter. Frankly, I'm not exactly sure of the number, because we are currently opening a surface right now in central station of Brussels. And we have in the pipeline 4 more co-workings which are already identified, and some of them currently being on the work. So that is Liège, next to the station, Antwerp, next to the station as well, the North Station neighborhood here in Brussels, and Louvain-la-Neuve, next to the station as well. So basically what we're building right now is a network of co-working that spans from the north of Belgium to the south of Luxembourg, in the main cities, sometimes several in one city, like in Brussels we have 6 right now. Antwerp will see more than one as well, so the first one is coming next year, early next year, and mainly close to the transportation hubs, so mainly close to the large train stations. And the idea is for companies which are members of Silversquare to be able to use any of our co-workings that span this geographical span whenever whenever suits them. So somebody in Brussels, whenever he has a meeting in Antwerp, can go and work from there. A company in Brussels can easily hire in Antwerp, because that's where the talent is for his business, and propose a technologically coherent environment than the one they're using in Brussels. It makes it very easy, etc., etc., etc. So basically, we're enabling growth. We're enabling people to save time by working close from where they live, and we're often and doing that, we're offering a very high a premium office solution. So
yeah, nice.
That's where we are today.
Yeah. And I also love how you designed your spaces. And since the pandemic, organizations were suddenly forced to allow people working from home. Mm-hmm. So things that seemed impossible before the pandemic suddenly became possible. And now many employees really appreciated this, and many don't want to go back full time to the office. So I interviewed a lot of CEOs, and many are now looking at their way of working and completely reviewing it. And also redesigning their office spaces, because they want to make working from the office more a space of collaboration, of innovation, of connection, or brainstorming. And I find that that's where you're really good at, because you have designed your spaces around that model, the connection, with also rooms where people can concentrate if they need to concentrate. So I don't know if you could give some advice to these organizations. What should these organizations think about when they're redesigning their offices?
There are several elements into what you just said. The first is, and many people will have heard that, and I think that it's true, so I'll repeat it. The crisis that we went through is an acceleration of change, right? It's not the change in itself, basically. It just fast forwarded us to a timeline that was supposed to happen, something that was supposed to happen by 2025 happened. Well, 2025,
Yeah.
2030, basically, which is the specialization of the office, well, the explosion of the office, well, the unit of the office as it used to exist a year and a half ago exploded. It was bound to happen, basically, because the pressure from the workforce, the pressure from the environment, the people that, I mean, the claim that people already had before, not to lose waste time commuting always at the same time, finding themselves losing about an hour, 2 hours a day in their car. All these demands were already there, basically. It's just that nobody deemed that it was completely possible until a year and a half ago, where we were forced to do it, and everybody realized, oh, actually, it bloody works, and it works very well. Most companies interviewed. I read recently most in McKinsey Insights that most companies interviewed claim that they've gained in productivity in the pandemic, but they've lost in
creativity,
company culture, basically, and adhesion to the project itself, to the company itself. That's a very big threat for large companies. So basically, we fast forwarded to something that was bound to happen probably in a decade. It happened now. People realize they can work from home. People realize that it makes no sense to read emails from the office if it means that you have to lose an hour just to get there in time to read your emails. Why? That actually, if you're somebody who likes to work at night or in the evening, you don't have to go at the office at 9 in the morning. You can just do it the way you want. And if you prove yourself reliable and that you do the work that you're supposed to do, that you're expected to do, that you set yourself to do, then it's fine. Nobody gives a fuck. That's the way it's going to be. Fine, and I think it's great. It's a great revolution.
Yeah.
It's a great materialization of the empowerment that the digital age gave us. Why move all the time when you can actually open your screen and work like we're actually doing right now? So that's the way it's going to be, which means that the office pulling people at one place at the same time for the same amount of time, everybody makes no sense. That's gone, never going to come back. Companies would be ill-advised to have their workers come back to read their emails at the office if that's what they do for the first 2 hours of the day. Don't do it, but companies, I think, would be ill-advised as well not to gather their teams to collaborate, innovate, think about the product that they're offering to the market, because teamwork and culture is a defining aspect of any company, and if you don't have any place to meet, then you're actually endangering yourself as far as I think, right? And I've read a recent article about Dropbox, the American company. They've decided that they're going to remake completely their headquarters. People are encouraged to work from home for solo work, which is anything that has to be done alone, and they're encouraged to work from the office for anything that has value added for gathering, basically. And I think that's the way. Of course, it's going to depend on companies, right? But I think basically that's the model that will prevail at the end of the crisis that we're going through right now, which is offices will be transformed to be a place where you want to go because there's something lively about it, because you meet people that you want to meet, and because you have specific innovation topics or reflections that you need to go about with the people that you work with or with people that are part of the organization, and that for that you need to be into a specific environment. Um, Zoom or Teams call are very non-appropriate for innovation. It doesn't work, and they're also very difficult. You probably noticed that it's very difficult when you have people which are partly physical and partly
At the office, yeah.
virtual. Yeah,
Virtual,
you
yeah.
have a team which is in an office. You have 5 people, and you have a bunch of people which are sitting remotely. It's very difficult for people which are remotely. You can't follow properly the meeting. So basically, the technology is not there yet completely to enable everything, and innovation to this date has to be done, according to me, it's my opinion, physically.
When it's possible, yeah. And how do you design then a space for innovation and collaboration?
Well, basically, I think that an office will become more and more a place where people will want to go. So, un lieu de vie, as we say in French. You have to add attraction to the formula, right? Until a year and a half ago, people would have to come to the office. Otherwise, you were considered being either on holiday or either doing nothing. So that was the way most companies saw somebody not sitting in his chair during the day. That's going to change, as we just said. That notion has exploded and disappeared, and that's for the better, as far as I'm concerned. So, but before you used to force them to come. Now, if you can't force them to come, you need to give them a good reasons to come. So, the office will become some place where there's a lot of value added, whether be it through food, through games, through the general feeling that it creates within people, the most of the area will be composed of open area where people can easily gather and engage into interaction and work together, whether in very small groups, one-to-one, or larger groups. And I think that the offices will be mostly built around these open spaces that people can use very freely in a very liquid way.
And then meeting rooms, of course, as well.
Yeah, meeting rooms can be either open, can be closed. You have different formats that appear. Meeting rooms will be, some of them just for meeting, a table where people can just sit and exchange. But a lot of meeting rooms will be also designed for design thinking or for innovation, because that will be part of the reason why people will come to the office. Basically, the succession of closed offices that you sometimes see, less and less, of course, but that you sometimes used to see in large companies, I think that's going to mostly disappear. Even leaders of large corporations will work in a more liquid way. And again, I think that's a good evolution.
Yeah, yeah, I think too. I think too. And like you said, in the past, the office was a place where you had to go. So most offices weren't very well designed. But now, when that's also what I liked at Silversquare. When you enter a Silversquare, you immediately feel like the energy. It's beautiful. Lots of open spaces, but also lots of small corners if you want to gather with two or if you want to work alone. So I think that's important as well, to make the space, yeah,
Yes.
beautiful, and that you feel like, oh,
Yeah.
I want to work there because I like the energy and the light and the people, of course.
We had to do what companies are forced to do now, basically, which is think of a space in user terms. So we couldn't force people to come here. We're a business. We can't say you have to come to Silversquare. That doesn't work, obviously, like a large corporation would do to its employees. It doesn't work here. Those are all independent people. They choose to come here. So we need to make a place which is both attractive and functional, and that meets the end user's needs. Okay, so that's how we designed. We do a lot of open area, a lot of lounges and place for people to leverage to have some small chats around, either with their team, either with people that they bump into. And of course, the place needs to be sexy enough as well for people I mean, to be the talk of the town, basically. So what we decided to do 4 years ago, so almost 5 years ago, was to start working to make each Silver Square will be designed by a different designer, a creator, not somebody that works into the real estate business, so not an architect. We do in-house the space planning, which is designing what's going to be where, right? And then after we invite an artist, whether being a singer. We work with a singer on one occasion, Luz and the Yakuza for the Nove Station. Sometimes creators that work into the fashion industry, and sometimes the painters. So we work with renowned local artists to help us design a place which is unique. And so all our co-workings now are very different, not in terms of space planning, which is space organization, but in terms of feeling, because they correspond to the creator that's created. And basically the creator that we choose is always from the place where we are. So in Liège, Jean-Paul Espagnard is from Liège. He's born over there. In Antwerp, it's Stéphanie Deger, which studied in Antwerp, in the creative school in Antwerp, etc., etc. Basically, that's the idea, and that's because we have to attract people here.
Yeah, but companies have to attract people to the office, because I hear a lot of leaders that say, yeah, the culture is a little bit lost. People are not as engaged anymore. So their solution is like, we have to make working from the office mandatory at least for 2 or 3 days a week. Yeah. And that will solve our problems. And I think it will only increase the problem, because if you force people to do something, people don't like to be forced. So it's better to motivate people. And there are other ways to create culture.
I agree, but it's a dilemma. It's a tough dilemma to solve, because the need to preserve the culture of an organization and the need to preserve its innovation capabilities and its constant improvement, basically, constant way forward, is mandatory for a company as well. So what do? You're as a leader today of a large organization, you're stuck between the employees that overwhelmingly say we're not ready to come back 5 days per week to the office. We'd rather come 1 or 2 days a week, and the rest do it from wherever we live. And the obligation for them to preserve the culture of the corporation that they work for, and to keep on looking forward as to what to do and how to do. And today, most corporations have not yet completely set a strategy as to how it's going to be for working in the next decade, given the context that we're talking about. So I understand that they're saying, listen, meanwhile, we find the right equilibrium, come back to the office at least 3 days a week or 4 days a week, so that together we can plan how this is going to work out and where the equilibrium is going to be set finally for our organization. And each organization will have a different point of view, right? Some of them are much more agile and probably much more digital, and probably younger will have an easier, we'll find it easier to promote remote working. Some less agile companies will find it probably more difficult. And each company, given its culture and its specificities, will reach a different equilibrium. But I understand that large corporations today try to pull the employees back to the office, because what is the alternative right now? They have to think about the survival of the organization as well, and not just the well-being of the employee. But that being said, if they enforce something which the employees don't want, they risk losing the employees, which I have heard many times and read in many articles that I read on the topic. Some employees saying, if you force me, I leave.
Yeah.
So it's a very tricky path for large corporations to walk on right now. And I understand the dilemmas they're stuck into. There are many different. I mean, there are a lot of articles which are being published right now on some companies which say office is gone, we don't need them anymore, no real estate for the company as well. Great. By the way, that's mostly a financial decision, according to me. And I'm not sure it's a sustainable one. It's a financial decision because real estate represents usually a very important expense for large corporations, typically second or third largest expense for corporations. So being able to scrap that or diminish that, there's a very strong financial incentive. But I don't think that getting rid of the office altogether is a very wise thing to do, as we already explained. You need somewhere for people to gather and think about the product that they represent, that they work for, that they chose to work for. So yeah, not easy at all.
No, not easy, but like you say, if it's like we want to think about this and in the meantime come back and we think about this and we build it together, that's okay. But some organizations really saw this working from home thing like, okay, we had to, and we did it for that time. Now let's go back to the old way of working. And that's very dangerous. Because for me, also culture, and that's culture is really linked to your values and to living your values. So you have very strong cultures without an office, like you have very weak culture and everyone is at the office. And yes, they like their colleagues, but they're not really attached to the culture of the organization or to the organization as such.
It's as we said, it's a tough topic. There are I understand the urge for for leaders of large corporations to bring back people together, to fill the offices that they're still paying, by the way, because when you're a large corporation, you can't easily get rid of the extra square meters that you suddenly do not need. So it's again, financially, it's not easy for them. Or probably what will end up being the dominant model is that people will work from home about a third of the time, maybe 40%, and that the 60% remaining will be split between the office and a co-working environment. People will want to work from home for some specific tasks and then want to work close to home for some other specific tasks. Spending 2 days or 3 days alone at home is not heaven for most of people, depending on the size of the apartment you have, what city you live in, etc. And you might want to work from a close professional working environment, which is paid by your company to work from during those days, and then go to the office whenever you need. So basically, it's going to end up being a mix between these three elements. The office will remain specific innovation and brainstorming and teamwork, solo work at home, and something close to home, like a co-working or co-working-like environment, to be able to socialize, etc., and keep on building yourself while you're remote working from the office.
And do you already have companies that have an office and that also rent some spaces in your co-working?
Yes, we do. It's a trend which we feel is accelerating, of course, right now. So it will. These were until the crisis. These were very rare occasions where companies would work like that, leverage us for a physical presence in cities where they were not. But now it's something which is accelerating, obviously, and we're modifying some of our offers to better suit these type of customers, because there's a lot of challenges for us, local co-working environments, to respond to these expectations from large corporations, and so we're working on that. But of course, it already exists. We already have companies that work like that today, and we expect it to grow very strongly.
I expect it to grow as well, because and the trend you say, like 40% from home, I think it will be more 40% from the office. From the CEOs I've interviewed, a lot of them had already policies where people could work 1 or 2 days from home and 3 days from the office. And now the trend is reversing. It will be more like 1 or 2 days from the office and the rest from home. But like you say, people miss connections, and working from a co-working space close to home, if you're too far from the office, is a great alternative. And also to continue being inspired, to meet new people. And yeah, it's great for the creativity.
Yeah, people will choose basically according to their own sensibility.
Yeah.
Where apart from the mandatory days at work, how are they going to work? Some people love it working from home. Some people live, outside in the countryside, very far from anything, and they work in their garden, and it's fine for them, and they need nothing else. Some people live in the cities in a small apartment and think about one thing, is leaving their apartment so that their day can be at least, there's a difference between being at home and being at work, and at home is not appropriate, it's not big enough, and there's the dog, and the connection is not good enough. But there's going to be many reasons basically, and people are going to choose by themselves. And again, I think that's very close to what I think is where we all should go to, which is empowerment of your own decision. You work for the product and the company you choose to work for, and you work into the way you want. And the only thing you are liable to is the performance that is expected from you into your work, and what you put into it, and how well you do.
And the culture and values.
Of course, the culture and values, but again, there's a match. If you choose a company, you usually choose it because it matches your own values. At least that's the way I see it.
Yeah, it's not always the case, unfortunately, or sometimes you evolve and you feel.
But if you elevate individual choice to where it should be, which is people decide what they do with their life and where they want to be and what they want to contribute to, then in that case, and if that's what the person has in mind, then indeed he's going to choose a company. He or she will choose a company that suits his own values and his own culture.
Yeah, great. Well, thank you for that. So we will put the link also of your website in the show notes of the episodes, but it's silversquare.eu.
Yeah, absolutely. Silversquare.eu. Yeah.
Yeah. If they want to contact you, or if they want to visit a co-working space. I really love your space. It's not close to my home, but still I love going there because I like the people from Silversquare, but also the other members.
Thanks a million. I hope maybe we'll open one closer to your home then someday.
But there are some closer to my home.
Oh, yeah.
But I like the people at Silversquare, Louis, so that's why I go there. Again,
we're there, individual choice. I think that's the key.
Yeah. And it's also close to the university where I often have meetings, so it's nice. No, well, it was really nice talking to you, Axel. Thank you.
Likewise. Thanks a lot. Thanks a million.
Yeah. Bye then.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, you finished another episode of Rebel Leader with a Heart. If you want more, go to rebelleaderwithaheart.com for show notes and past episodes. If you love the show, subscribe, leave a review and share it with a friend. The more the merrier. Thanks for tuning in and have a great week, you Rebel Leader with a Heart.